would be less interventionist than, say, his predecessor, Joe Biden. This action in Venezuela is the exact opposite. So the White House is definitely in a mode of messaging at the moment to convince the American people that not only was this valid legally, but it was necessary for U.S. national security. But again, I can tell you that critics are scratching their heads at that explanation, given the fact that if this is about drugs, Venezuela is not the main contributor of drugs into the United States. It is China, it is Mexico, and the U.S. has not made any attempt to try and go after the Mexican president or China's President Xi. Why? Because they are not able to. It's essentially come down to the United States is targeting Venezuela because it is able to, capable militarily, and that is what it has done. I can very quickly also tell you that there are many Americans who are opposed to it and are protesting outside in the White House in very small numbers, but saying that this is really more about the natural resources in Venezuela than it is about any sort of enforcement of law regarding drug trafficking.
There have indeed been many reasons given by the Trump administration to justify this operation. It's been about drugs, it's been about immigration, it's been about Maduro not being democratically elected. The fact that this has happened under Trump, a president who has always claimed to go for America first. This is what he was elected on. His MAGA base elected him on this. And when you look at what's unfolded in Venezuela these past 24 hours, it's clearly not an isolationist president that he has touted all along. How is it going to go down with his base, the folks that elected him?
It's deeply unpopular for any sort of military involvement. That term, boots on the ground, that you hear repeatedly, is always one of the first questions that reporters ask of their leaders, because there's no appetite to see another generation wrapped up in war, as we saw in Afghanistan and the U.S. invasion of Iraq. This is always something. Will there be boots on the ground? That is a question that is asked. And repeatedly, the U.S. president or previous presidents, such as Joe Biden, have said or downplayed any sort of U.S. military involvement. Donald Trump, as you point out, campaigned that he would be less interventionist than Joe Biden. But what we've seen is just the opposite. Since Donald Trump has come into office, he has had numerous military actions, whether it be in Iran, whether it be in Syria, whether it be now in Venezuela. The U.S. president has been arguing he's a peacemaker, that he's settled a number of more than a half dozen wars. But at the same time, many would argue, his critics particularly, that he's speaking out of both sides of his mouth. As he's arguing he's a peacemaker, he's also repeatedly taken military action unilaterally in a number of sovereign nations.
We're all waiting with great anticipation to see the first images of Nicolas Maduro, the captured Venezuelan president, and his wife, Celia Flores, who have, it looks like, just landed in the United States after being captured by American forces in Caracas earlier. This is quite extraordinary, what we've been looking at, Kimberly. I mean, this whole day has been extraordinary in terms of what's unfolded. First, the capture of Nicolas Maduro, then the U.S. president announcing that the United States would be running Venezuela. And now we're looking at this plane, which is believed to be carrying the Venezuelan president, who's probably going to be exiting it handcuffed.
It's remarkable for so many reasons. Not only has this blindsided Americans, this has happened.
We waiting.
Some would argue quite deliberately to make sure there's no economic uncertainty in the short term. After markets closed on a Friday evening, Americans woke up Saturday morning to this news. But I can also tell you that the news that the United States would be running Venezuela is absolutely shocking. To not just the residents of Venezuela, but to Americans who not only can't.
Are you using your home address for business, but know it's hurting your brand image? And I'm close to one.
A commercial kicked in.
Growing your business is tricky.
All I can say is that shit is crazy as hell.
challenging, especially when you use your home as your business.
Shit go live like that.
Renting an office space
You just
is
gotta
expensive, and
expect the
most virtual office
unexpected.
addresses cost an arm and a
And
leg.
you
So
say,
what
all
are your
right, we're gonna
options?
jump right
Well,
back to
at
that
Postal One, we've got you covered. You can get a business address at a real
in a few
physical
minutes.
location, not a PO box.
We,
Choose from any
dealing
of the
with
thousands of addresses in our
technical
network and
difficulties.
immediately upgrade your brand image.
That's all right.
We
You
receive
feel
your
me?
mail and
We're gonna
packages,
jump
and
back
all you
to
have
it
to do is
in
you
1
manage
second,
your mail with our app. We're online.
and we back to it. Y'all ready? We jumping back to it.
Working with
Hit the blunt for me.
with the vice president to see that there be a safe and proper transition. And
Yeah,
yet we're
for
hearing from Venezuela
sure.
that may not be the arrangement or the understanding.
All right, Kimberly, we're looking at law enforcement
We watching this, y'all. We
waiting
seeing what's
to bring
going
out,
on.
Nicolas Maduro out of that plane. We will keep
You
a
be
close
watching my
eye on this.
videos?
We'll continue to follow
You want me to
the
give you a
developments
shout out?
in New York.
What's the last
This
video I
military plane,
made?
which landed a
Did
short
you
while
watch
ago at New York Stewart International
you
Airport,
watch
is believed to be carrying
Did you
Nicolas
watch the
Maduro
video?
and his wife Celia
What was the
Flores.
last video
This
I
is
made?
north of
Tell
Manhattan.
me.
Maduro, as
Hey, I was about to go until this plane landed, and I said, I'm finna go live, and we gonna watch this together. Y'all feel me? What y'all been smoking on? What y'all want me to do next?
He will be turned
You know what I'm
over
saying?
to federal
Back
authorities
to the
as he exits
video
that plane,
but I'm
and
watching
is
the
expected
comments
to be
though.
arraigned in New York in a federal court in the Southern District of New York next week, accused of conspiracy to commit narco-terrorism and to import cocaine, as well as possession and conspiracy to possess machine guns and destructive devices.
Damn.
So, Kimberly, I
They
believe you're
racked
back
up the
with us.
charges on me.
We, again, are waiting for Maduro to exit this plane, but the actual court appearance won't happen until next week, right?
That is our understanding, and that is because we're coming off the end of what typically Americans take 2 weeks off between Christmas and New Year's, and so the first official business day won't be.
If y'all still here, let me see some ones on the screen.
You'll see this formal indictment or charging of Nicolas Maduro and his wife Celia Flores. But I can tell you that there is probably going to still be what we would call some camera or filming opportunities between now and then. Not only were we expected to see the two Venezuelan leaders coming off of the plane in moments from now in this military base, but we expect that we'll see them boarding onto a helicopter and potentially then exiting the helicopter to a detention center that we believe is in Brooklyn, New York. That has not been confirmed by the White House, but that is being widely reported here in the United States. So there's still a lot of questions about how this is going to play out, when that indictment will be formally held. But that arraignment, as it's called, is expected to take place early next week. I can tell you what's also expected to take place is the U.S. president briefing Republicans, we have been told, in a highly unusual venue.
That's what's going on.
We know that Democrats on Capitol Hill, both senators and members of Congress in the House of Representatives, have been demanding that they be updated, not only on the basis of
we need to be updated too,
for making this arrest of Nicolas Maduro and his wife
that's
Celia
the
Flores,
plane.
but also what the transitioning of the United States in terms of its involvement of running the
can we
Venezuelan
go take
government
out
will
some
be,
land and take the
and
oil?
what the end state is for getting the United States uninvolved in Venezuela.
We want some
These
oil
are big
too.
questions that not only Hakeem Jeffries, the top Democrat
Our passport
in the House
work,
of
y'all.
Representatives, is asking, but also Chuck Schumer, the top Democrat in the U.S. Senate. But what we've been told is there will not be a briefing on Capitol Hill in the U.S. Congress next week. Instead, what we're being told is that Republicans only are being briefed at the Kennedy Center, which is a venue for musical theater.
Shouts out to Connor 2424 Y7, right?
Here in the United States. So it's a highly unusual and we should point out
88.
Controversial setting, given the fact that Donald Trump has recently added his name to the outside of that venue, much to the chagrin of many of the artists and musicians that play there. So I can tell you that a lot of this is highly unusual, not just the briefing, but the arrest of Nicolas Maduro, much of this has been blindsiding members of Congress, the American public, as well, of course, as the Venezuelan people themselves.
Also highly unusual, of course, to see cameras at a military base in the United States waiting for the arrival of a captured foreign leader. Kimberly, stand by. I'm going to bring in Cici de Flavis in Caracas to find out how this is playing out over there. We're watching, Cici, images of the plane believed to be carrying Nicolas Maduro arriving at this military base in New York. We are waiting to see him exit that plane. Are people in Venezuela following this? How is this being seen from there?
100%. This is one of the biggest days in Venezuela over the last few years. People have been anticipating this moment if there's going to be a government change. So obviously all eyes are on this. This affected us from this morning where we heard the strikes, where we saw the smoke. So obviously everyone inside and outside of the country is paying attention to this. Everyone's sending me videos and photos of what's happening. And I think everyone's very intrigued too to see the state of Nicolas Maduro coming out of that plane.
So, you know, people are watching this. And what have been the reactions in terms of the U.S. announcing that it will run Venezuela from now on?
I think at the beginning of the day when Nicolas Maduro was taken out of the country, people were very excited. Some people in Venezuela and outside were excited of maybe this means a system change, a government change. There was a bit of hope in there to the people who do not believe or who do not follow the Maduro regime. However, afterwards, when Trump came out and started talking in his press statement and came with those words in that statement that now the U.S. will run Venezuela, I think people were very in shock. I'm not sure anybody was really expecting this. Obviously, we couldn't also anticipate just like a transition, like a quick thing of like, oh, Maduro's out of Venezuela. No, you're free to go. Obviously, nobody was expecting that. But I think Trump just coming with those harsh statements of, well, now we own Venezuela pretty much, it has been a bit of a shock. And then all we have left right now is to wait and see what's truly going to happen.
Yeah, waiting and seeing what happens is also what we're doing here. As we wait for the Venezuelan leader to come out of that plane, there is some movement, lots of law enforcement officers, as you can see from those live pictures, coming down the steps of the plane. And we are expecting any moment now Nicolas Maduro, the captured Venezuelan leader, and his wife, Celia Flores, to also come out of that plane. This is the second leg, I guess, of his journey to the United States. The first leg
it's going
was him
down.
boarding
You know what I
a
mean?
ship, which then transported him onto this military plane, and then he's going to be carried on a helicopter and taken to southern New York. Lots of movement there. Cici, stand by. I'm going to bring back Kimberly, our White House correspondent, to talk us through what the expectations are in terms of Maduro's movements, his whereabouts, where he's going to be taken, and what's going to be happening in the next few days.
We're really in some uncharted waters in terms of how this is going to play
Maduro
out.
speaking
Not just
Spanish like,
because
fuck
Donald
y'all.
Trump is
Where my
somewhat of
wife
an
at?
unpredictable president,
Fuck
but
with
because it's
everything
been
y'all talking about.
decades since
He
we've
don't like
seen
Saddam.
major military
Y'all got
action
no
by the
jurisdiction
United
over me.
States in
But when we get your ass from the United
really not
States,
since the
we get your
arrest
ass
of
and
Manuel
you just
Noriega, the general in
shit out of
Panama,
luck.
some, I believe, 30 years ago. Have we seen anything like this? So it's been a long time since Americans have seen this type of imagery playing out on their television screens. It's highly unusual. And again, it's going to be debated and scrutinized for days, if not years to come, because the United States is making the argument that this is about law enforcement, that this is about drugs, that this is about illegal immigration.
They taking longer than what I got, so I'm going to have to cut this video
to the
short.
people of Venezuela. But at the same time, we don't see the United States taking similar military
taking long to
action
bring him out,
against
you know what I
other
mean?
countries in
Y'all
Latin
rolled
America
up.
where they may have
Y'all checking
similar
it out. Here we go.
concerns.
We go try back.
For example, Mexico is a large distributor of drugs into the United States. There is a grave concern about illegal immigration from Mexico. But we don't see the United States going after Claudia Sheinbaum, the Mexican president. We don't see these types of actions against China's President Xi, where we also know fentanyl is being imported into the United States. So the argument that a minor drug producing or transporting hub such as Venezuela should be the focus of so much military action by the United States is definitely a head scratcher for lawmakers as well as the American public. The arguments that this is about enforcing the law is not something that is making sense or really being rationalized by the American people, because they see that the Drug Enforcement Agency of the United States has said that Venezuela is not the top primary provider of drugs into the United States. So this is what's known in the United States as realpolitik. In other words, might makes right. Why is the United States doing this? Well, many are speculating it's because the United States can't. Venezuela is smaller. It doesn't have the ability to match the military might of the United States. And given its vast natural resources of oil reserves, of gold, of rare earths minerals, which are highly coveted by the United States in the defense industry, in the use of cell phones in the United States and technology, that there may be other motivations other than just trying to enforce drug enforcement in the United States. And that may be the motivating factor of the Trump administration, whether they're saying it publicly or not.
Yeah, and with Maduro now arriving in New York to face these criminal charges, lots of questions also, Kimberly, about whether this trial can be considered legitimate if the arrest itself may have not just violated international law, but also U.S. law, because the president didn't seek congressional approval ahead of this operation.
And that is something that, unfortunately, for those who follow the U.S. Constitution carefully, I'm required to do so for my job, this is certainly a concern, given the fact that we've seen not just Donald Trump, but a succession of presidents since the U.S. invasion of Iraq, really sidestepping the U.S. Constitution and the requirement to seek congressional authority before taking military action. That Donald Trump has done it. Joe Biden, his predecessor, has done it. Even Barack Obama has done it as well. And the concern is that there is a growing imperial presidency that the United States has inherited in the last generation or so. These are co-equal branches of government. The White House should not have more power than the U.S. Congress. And that's why the U.S. Constitution says presidents must seek congressional authority in order to take military action. But we've seen that being completely disregarded, and we've not seen the U.S. Congress holding the White House to account. This is the latest example with the arrest of Nicolas Maduro. What I can also tell you is there are real questions about how this will have an effect on future military action in the United States, given the fact that, once again, the White House has seemingly taken action without Congress's permission and really is facing no consequence.
Kimberly, let me go back to Sisi in Caracas to talk more about the reaction within Venezuela. I mean, there's been no love lost, Sisi, between the Venezuelan people and Nicolas Maduro. He wasn't popular exactly. He has his supporters, of course. Gotcha. How have people been reacting to his capture and to that photograph of him in blindfolds, handcuffed? And how will they be reacting to him probably coming out of this plane in handcuffs as well?
Well, over the last few years, it's been very rough for the Venezuelan people inside and outside of the country.
It's getting dark on the
Since
East Coast.
Maduro's regime, more than 9 million people have left Venezuela, and even a little bit before his term started. And as well as we've been talking about it, Maduro, there was an election in 2024, and he didn't really win those elections by Venezuelan vote. Regardless, he decided to stay in power, as dictatorships do, and most Venezuelan people were exhausted to have him as the leader of the government, who was impoverishing people, who was imprisoning everyone that talked or spoke against him, or the government itself. So overall, people have this little bit of sense of relief of things might change inside of the country. There might be a bit of hope that we can get out of this humanitarian crisis. However, Maduro was just the face of the system. Obviously, he was a huge part of it, but he's not the only one that has been causing this. So, sure, this gives a little bit of hope to some Venezuelans inside and outside of the country, but there's still this uncertainty of what this would mean. I'm assuming most Venezuelans will take.
President Trump Sisi said that the U.S. would make the people of Venezuela rich. They would make Venezuela. It would make Venezuela an independent and rich state. Do people believe that the U.S. will come to their rescue and improve their lives and living conditions?
I think for the last few months, Venezuelans were very much expecting anyone to pay attention to what was happening. Over the last few years, it's been beyond the drugs. It's been involvement from other countries. There's been this oppression, this humanitarian crisis. So I think Venezuelans were so, the word would be kind of exhausted, and they were just kind of screaming for help, being like, we'll take the help from anyone. So obviously Trump comes in, and then there was a few words of, okay, we'll welcome it. But now with Trump's words, it's a bit of
is she right about that, or is she just
means.
trying to make conversation?
And sometimes it's just empty promises. So promising that the Venezuelan people will be rich.
Y'all let me know.
We will see
in
the
comments
fruitfulness of this intervention in the short and long term. It's very uncertain, and we're kind of used to government officials saying and speaking beautiful words, but then not seeing the actual results from it.
Who's running the country right now in the immediate?
Right now, it's very uncertain. Obviously, Maduro was the leader of the system that we had in place, so he's no longer here.
Rooted.
Right now, we have Delcy Rodriguez, who's speaking. She was the vice president of Maduro's system and government. So there's a lot of uncertainty. Obviously, Trump is saying that he's going to run Venezuela, but there's also other people, other military officials inside of the country. So it is very uncertain. We're kind of in this limbo of who's going to call the shots. Are we going to have an election soon?
They're not bringing him out yet.
Put someone in place for a little bit while
we
we have
just
an actual election.
Waiting.
Will that election be respected? We honestly, it's uncertain, and there's no concrete answer right now.
Let me come back to you because we're still waiting.
Yep, you got it, K.
Nicolas Maduro and his wife Celia Flores to exit that plane. It would almost seem like they're perhaps deliberately delaying his exit from that plane because we're looking at
they trying to let the snipers set up and shit.
International Airport where that plane landed about 25 minutes or so ago. Could it be also that they perhaps don't want the cameras to see Nicolas Maduro coming out of that plane?
If they didn't want us to see that shit, they would have put some blockers
this is something
up or
that Donald
something.
Trump wants to. He likes to appear in control.
Trump likes to show off.
He likes to appear to be the strong man, and he also is a man that is seeking praise from world leaders. And we should point out, as much as he's received criticism, he's also received praise from some that believe he is delivering a new form of democracy.
If you've forgotten to get that special someone in your life,
that was it.
Well,
the commercial came on, y'all, and I've been waiting centuries for Maduro to come out the plane, him or his wife. What y'all think? We should keep waiting or continue on?
Given his television background as a reality TV star, that the cameras
y'all waiting with me. We waiting together. Let's get back to it, right?
Nicolas Maduro, the Venezuelan leader, and his wife Celia Flores exit that Boeing 757.
Buy one, get one on with it.
A plane being controlled by the Department of Justice right now. We should also point out, though, that there are other agencies that are also involved with the not just the apprehension, but also the transport.
So you want to see that Canamo reveal? I got you, player.
Detention cell, ultimately, that we believe will be in Brooklyn, New York, until he is arraigned earlier in the week. What we know is that the Drug Enforcement Agency was critically involved in the execution of the apprehension. And we also know that as we see those pictures, those live pictures playing out, that the Federal Bureau of Investigation, or the sort of domestic police force in the United States, the FBI, is also highly involved. And then, of course, the fact that this is taking place in the U.S. state of New York means that there are going to be local police officials involved. I've spotted some jackets of the NYPD also getting on board that plane as we've been talking. So there are a number of police jurisdictions involved, because this is obviously just not an ordinary law enforcement operation. This is the United States apprehending a head of state in a sovereign country, one that many people in Venezuela support, even as there are those that did not like Nicolas Maduro. This is something that is highly unusual.
That
It is
nigga ain't
going to
coming
be
out.
debated in the United States for weeks and months to come. And we should also point out that it's going to be a disappointment to some of President Trump's supporters, given the fact that he argued to be less interventionist.
He like,
and this
fuck
action
y'all, I
is
ain't
certainly not
walking.
in keeping with his promise.
Like, we gonna cuff you and drag you out. He said, let me speak to my wife first.
Given the U.S. military buildup we saw in the region, it's still an incredibly dramatic operation that unfolded in Venezuela. And
let me speak to my wife first, and I will
mentioned earlier
come out.
That there have been some protests, small protests.
All right, y'all, in the future. Hey, do y'all want me to do some more live videos? You know what I mean? How about live vape reviews?
I think
You
is
know, something like
that
that.
had already been planned outside the White House. In fact, many of them were carrying
he
a
ain't coming out.
in support of the protesters in Iran right now, as well as
And
Palestinian
look, once this
flags
thing
for
get
the
low, it don't hit no
ongoing,
more.
Israeli genocide that's taking place in Gaza.
Battery
But
dead. You
given
see
the
that?
fact that these Americans are also highly
Died
attuned
on
to
me.
foreign and current events, there were also people carrying flags of Venezuela and also some signs that said hands off Venezuela and hands off Venezuelan oil.
How they get some signs already that say that they got
natural resources and the richness of that in Venezuela, that it is not only home to rare earths, that it are highly coveted for the defense industry in the United States, and for technology and electronics, but also it is the largest natural oil reserves in Latin America and in the Western Hemisphere. And so this is something that many suspect is the real motivating factor here. The fact that the United States is looking to not only be able to control that remotely, but also to be able to work with a government that is more friendly to the United States.
Y'all want to know which vape I'm doing next? I could tell y'all, but let me tell y'all this. Maduro has not came out of the plane yet. He's in there, and you know he probably cussing everybody out like fuck what y'all saying, fuck what y'all going through, and he just really is like, this ain't cracking. Y'all don't believe me? I'll show y'all right now. But number one, he ain't playing that shit. He like, nope, I ain't coming out. And I don't care what y'all say. He like, let me see my wife first.
The breakdown of international
that ain't what's going down,
the breakdown in terms of the legitimacy of the use of force.
He ain't come out yet.
We have been witnessing in the last 5 years several
He has not. He ain't coming out.
Main powers, main actors have used openly violence against a neighbor, another country, a friend,
Banks a million,
an old friend, or whatever, for the sake of its own purpose. No one is shaping now, today, the global order. In that sense, then, what happened in Venezuela is something very dramatic for Latin America.
Very dramatic for Latin America.
Has been outside the radar of the main powers in terms of the use of force.
They took him down, you know.
By now,
took him down through there.
We are witnessing the probability
he rocking handcuffs. He pissed off.
Conflict,
and he's in New York City.
Control
and he still ain't came down.
Major additional problems in the region.
So,
who should be worried the most right now?
Shit.
In the region?
So what I think finna happen, y'all, is I'm gonna have to let y'all go because Maduro don't want to come out the plane. He said if they don't let him see his wife, they gonna have to handcuff his ankles, shankle him down. So somebody watch and message me on Instagram and let me know what happened.